last time I had you here, we were talking about another book. You have managed to write another book, which for me, I'm convinced that you might be the most productive human in the world.
I definitely don't have that title, but I like to study the most productive people in the world.
What made you decide to write this book?
2017 was a really tough year. I had the 10th anniversary of my first book on the day that I stepped on stage at TED to talk about how I almost committed suicide in college. And then turning 40, I never thought I was going to make it to 40. So I really didn't have a plan for where to go from this point on. And I also had several friends who died in 2017 rather unexpectedly. And I had all these questions, began to feel overwhelmed, and the idea I came up with was, why don't I reach out to people I respect in different fields and ask them the same questions that I'm battling with. And I started getting responses from a few of them, and I thought to myself, well, wait a second. If I created the pretext of, would you like to be in my new book, perhaps this would grease the wheels and get even more responses.
It sounds like this book is kind of like Tim Ferriss goes soul searching.
There is a fair amount of soul searching in this book, and soul finding, and soul building. I don't think that it's just searching. It's easy to get obsessed with the tools and focus down in the weeds where you make mountains out of anthills, and when you zoom out and get some perspective, you can make some really critical high-level macro decisions that steer the direction of your entire life and the lives of those people you care for. So I wanted to talk to not just the 20-something icons of cryptocurrency and so on, who I did talk to, but I also wanted to talk to the people in their 60s and 70s. Say, you know what, like, here's the advice I would have given myself at 30. Here's the advice I would have given myself at 40.
Take me through some of the questions that you asked and some of the interesting tidbits that you got from it.
There were 11 questions. For instance, how have you learned to better say no? What strategies, tactics, recommendations might you have? When you feel overwhelmed or unfocused, what do you do? Or, if helpful, what questions do you ask yourself? If I had to pick one of the 11 questions, there are many different questions that I ask, but I would say the focus on failures, because I've realized there are so many recipes for success out there, but many people need defensive tools to combat pessimism or depression or anxiety.
Increasingly so in a world where everything is filtered and we are all set up with an algorithm to put our best self first, I can imagine that does do something to your psyche.
I wanted to make it really clear that these people have succeeded, at least from the perspective of the outside world, not despite or not because they've avoided mistakes and failure, but because they've learned how to cope with it.
What did you learn about asking the right questions?
All right, so I learned a few things. I learned many things. Start with some warm-up questions. And it requires some foreplay, for lack of a better term. You can't just like immediately jump on them. It's not appropriate. It doesn't work. If I want to ask someone the Billboard question, right? If you could put any message on a billboard that would reach millions or billions of people, what would it be? That's a really tough question to answer on the fly for many people. So I'll start with, what book or books have you gifted the most to other people and why? That's an easy question, but it gives something immediately actionable to readers.
When people read this book, comparatively to the others, what do you want them to take away?
Tribe Mentors is a bit of a choose-your-own-adventure book, a buffet where you can pick little pieces here and there. You should not try to do it all at once. That would be like buying a cookbook and trying to cook every recipe for the first meal that you attempt. Don't do that. What I'd like people to take away is achievement matters very little if you don't appreciate what you have.